Road, the remote learning program. We've got, according to this, we've got 10 people enrolled. What was the capacity? What's the max capacity of that program?
Space-wise, it's a lot more than we could given the staff. So we set a max of 40, anticipating, knowing what we have on hand as far as staff to run it. Certainly more than 40 kids could fit, in the multi-purpose rooms and be distanced and it work. But we have roughly 5 staff that's operating it right now. We do hope to get more, but right now we're working with 40, and even as the needs of the kids that come, that's sort of even pushing that number down. Because some of the younger, especially the younger kids, and if there's not a sibling with them, it is a lot more one-on-one needed to really give them, the attention they need. Right. Last conversation with Charles, he honestly felt more comfortable capping it at 20 at this point. But again, hopefully we get some more kids. And the enrollment did jump up to, I believe it was 15 before, I sent this out.
Am I reading something wrong? Because when it's talking about upcoming new programs, it said to date 10 youth have participated. Now, are we under the remote learning program? Am I reading something wrong, or what am I reading wrong?
Let me get to where you are.
Learning program as of
today. So as of today, so they gave me this early last week.
Okay.
So the enrollment did change after he put this report together. So
we're up to, what did we say, 15?
I believe that was the last number he gave me. We were up to roughly 15 kids.
And that's, we can't do more because of staff, right?
Right. I mean, we have a little space to add, but we're really reading our max right now just with staff.
Is there, I'm kind of surprised as the number of preschool and other teachers that, tell me what staff qualifications are, because I'm surprised are we having trouble? We're obviously having trouble finding staff.
Yeah, and we're not asking for teachers. Really, it's responsible people that want to almost be like a summer camp counselor. Really is what we're asking for.
What's the salary, Corey? You remember roughly?
I'll double check, but roughly we may have gotten it up to $10 an hour.
Oh, okay.
Maybe right. 11.
Okay. Got it.
Corey, question for you on that. We've got 15 in there now. CMS is obviously talking about a return to school unless the kids are fully enrolled in the remote learning program. Are these kids all remote learning or regular school? We don't know.
Our guess is that it'll be a mix. So they register week to week. And so the kids that are going to be, in person for week X, won't be in this program, but they'll be expected to be in our programs the weeks that they are still remote learning. And I guess it's off by however they divided the weeks where they're in person and when they're not.
They're still in person. It's not totally in person. I don't think there's any proposal for that yet. November 2nd is when K-5 come back somewhat part-time, but not 5 days on a permanent basis.
And even at this point,
but I'm just wondering, when that if that starts to happen, the bottom may drop out of this program. Obviously, you're keeping costs intact because you haven't brought on a lot of staff and you can adjust on the fly. But I'm just wondering if kids stay in remote learning and they have the option to do that, then the program's still viable for them.
Yeah, you're right. We still continue to evaluate it. If enrollment just completely drops, we don't see there's a demand for it, we discontinue the program. And even the way we're set up now.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the kids some of the kids don't attend each day. So they have, I think there's one kid, I think he comes Monday, Wednesday, Thursday or something like that. And some kids is just Tuesday, Friday, really depending on what, the needs are of the family. And we'll certainly be as flexible as we needed to.
What kind of financial commitment? If the family makes just a week-to-week financial commitment, I see how I see what Howie's saying. I mean, you could get in real trouble if you started getting a large number of staff members. The families are just making a week-to-week commitment. Am I right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, you could really get in trouble. I guess you do have to be careful then, because you could get in a lot of trouble if you brought on a lot of staff and there was an I mean, I guess as long as the staff understands their job could go at any point in time, I guess it's all right. But that's a little different from like a preschool where they make a commitment for a whole semester.
Right. Yeah. This is week to week, and in the conversations we plan to have with, because we have not gotten to that point with any potential staff yet, but it would be, this program will only go on as long as, where there's kids signing up.
Okay. That makes sense.
Anybody else have anything they want to comment on this? I can just see Corey right now, so I can't see the rest of you. So, Corey, let me ask you a question in terms of programming.
Yes.
Obviously, every event here is basically, we're not doing this event, we've canceled it. Is there any thought to, especially for the holidays, I don't know if we have any tapes of prior Nutcrackers, for example, a complete performance. If we do, maybe offering it up at a low cost and using that money maybe for scholarship for summer camp for kids, or for the learning program. But in other words, creating some programming that people might want to watch, holiday theme when they're home. You could do the same thing with the Playhouse, maybe some collaboration where part of it goes to their scholarship fund, part of it goes to yours, just to create something to put out there, because we're really stymied in terms of, what you can offer to folks in Matthews.
Agreed.
I mean, that's a pretty interesting idea. We haven't talked about any pre-recorded, performances. I'm guessing you're saying making them available. People could say register or pay to watch these previous performances.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. With the money going towards scholarships as opposed to operating, so it at least has a good purpose. But it gets some money for us to use for folks who couldn't use our programs otherwise, and creates programming, something for the town that they're certainly going to be missing through no fault of our own.
And make it fairly inexpensive. I mean, believe it or not, we're actually looking at the church. I'm on an advisory board for our missions, and we're literally looking at a virtual missions trip to Belize, and everybody pays $5 for it, and it goes toward Belize. So, I mean, I think we've got to be real creative to still become relevant, because I agree with Howie. If nothing happens, then people will begin to lose interest in Parks and Rec. And I just think anything that we can do, and I think you can keep it very inexpensive. I mean, I charge something because people don't think it's of value unless there's a charge with it.
We haven't, our team hasn't had any conversations like that. Certainly something I'll share and, get some feedback on it and see what we can offer. That is a pretty good idea.
Right, the town band, or you may also be able to do something. We've got a town band, for example. They could play. We could stream it, or we could, they can be distantly spaced. You won't have the same option with the Nutcracker or a show. And then, put that out there too. Just a thought of some programming that we can get out there while we're waiting for everything to kind of calm down.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll share it with the team, get some feedback on it, and, update everybody, next month to see what we are able to do. I will share, actually, let me see if Leanne already added it in here. Yeah, we do plan to do a little bit more with decorating in Stumptown. Yeah, this year. Again, not having or not expecting to have our normal tree lighting ceremony, just to have something or try something in Stumptown Park. And we got the photos. It will still be a tree in front of Town Hall, but I'm gonna tell you, Stumptown is gonna be the eye catcher. It's gonna be in my opinion, I think call it more attractive than what'll be at Town Hall.
Another idea possibly is putting out a prize for Christmas decorations, having folks either send short videos or stills of their homes. We can put on a website and share.
Okay.
Where they're at. If you want to give it, could be a prize for the best house, or it could have people vote, or it could just be a tour of homes, Christmas homes in Matthews, or holiday. Let's call it holiday, probably better.
Yeah. I will share. May have to make you be the judge of those, Howie.
Not me. I'm the wrong guy. But or have people vote. Simple. Have them vote on the website.
Yeah. I think that'd be fun.
Okay.
Incidentally, whoever did that, I like the pumpkin hunt, and that came across my Facebook page. Whoever said so, that even said something like the witches have been busy and they've hidden all the pumpkins all over town. We'll have hints certain days. I assume Leanne was the one that wrote that up. That was very creative. That was pretty neat.
It was Leanne and Amanda.
That was really nice. Like that.
Yeah, that's going to be nice. It fits right into, we did release some information asking citizens to, be conscious of what they're doing around Halloween. Some of the, call it green events or green things to do, meaning North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services recommends, hey, you should do these. You probably shouldn't do these, and please definitely don't do, those in this list. Biggest part is the trick-or-treating and the trunk or treats and anything that really promoted that hand-to-hand contact and exchange. But I know it's tough with Halloween. Mm-hmm. Kids really want to be, every kids and adults all like to dress up and have a party. So we'll see what Matthews does, meaning the citizens of Matthews.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on the division reports? No. If not, Corey, your report. Anything in director's report separate from what's already in division?
Just a couple of things to share. Really, just some updates. No big news. We just continue to progress with the dog park. Keep running into obstacles that sort of change our plans. I'll share there was one barn left on the site. We wanted to do everything we could to be able to use that barn on the site just to keep it there. But structurally, the change in use being an occupied structure versus what it was for just storing equipment. The structural engineers just didn't feel confident that we could just make that change without essentially tearing it down and rebuilding it. So it was a little sad last week to sort of get that news, but I do think we're going to have to just take that structure down. Biggest deal is we don't know what's in the ground. Not sure how it's secured or and the weight of the roof and that sort of stuff. Heritage Trail, we're getting closer and closer to putting that flashing beacon in across John Street. People are using the trail. We have technically blocked it off and asked that they not, but had some recent conversations with NCDOT. I'll say this is likely new information, but they are now, where the construction is at 485? Mm-hmm. That their construction area now has expanded down to Greylock. So they're going to improve John Street from 485 down toward Greylock. We weren't sure how they were going to treat it and how that would impact what we were planning. We got some more information, feel pretty good about it. And so now we're able to hopefully now go out and just get that rectangular rapid flashing beacon installed to hopefully help people cross the street. If you've tried to cross John Street, it's playing chicken at this point. So hopefully that'll signal cars to stop and let more pedestrians get by without having to sprint across. Really, those are the only, big projects we're really talking about right now. MEC Playbook is wrapping up. MEC Playbook being the Mecklenburg County master plan, call it an update. Series of meetings last month. There's one more stakeholder meeting where it's the towns and the county and some other groups, Duke Energy, call it big players around the county. And we're going to have some direct input on the final draft of that plan. And that's exciting. So they're going to wrap that up, I believe, in the next 6 to 8 months. I believe they said they'd be done. And when I say done, meaning a document ready to present in the next 6 to 8 months. Had some good conversations with Mecklenburg County director last week, just talking through, call it expectations, fears. Everybody wants their piece of the pie, right? We want to make sure that the county stays active in Matthews and continues to do stuff that impacts our citizens.
Corey, I've got a question for you on Veterans Day. I know Mark is moving heaven and earth to get his project done in time, but what is the town doing in terms of capacity and social distancing for an unveiling Veterans Day event in Stumptown Park, or has that not been decided yet?
Well, we did take more of an approach of this being a rental. So not attempting to directly manage the event, but met with Mark. Mark and I have met a couple of times, and I believe it was Thursday, Mark and Hazen and Stacen met on site and just really talked through what the Legion was going to have in place as far as requiring masks, making sure that, or ensuring that people were distanced appropriately. I guess some of the activities, or just talking through what was going to happen on the stage out in the park, just to ensure that we were doing everything, or make sure that the Legion was doing everything they could to comply with the governor's order.
Right, but obviously the Legion is not going to have control. Obviously, the town's going to have to get involved if too many people show up. I mean, that's my concern. In other words, if you space out Stumptown Park for this event, there are only X number of people that you can physically get in there, and that may not be a problem. But, my concern is what happens if more people show up, or we've got a crowd that won't wear masks or social distance. And that's a concern because we've not had any large public events really in quite a while in the town of Matthews.
Yeah, and so we're going to lean on the Legion, the Matthews Police, as far as enforcing mask wearing. I'm not sure what the police response would be. We did just ask Mark to, make sure that there was appropriate signage, and as the leader of the Legion, he'd be that one to encourage as strongly as possible everyone just have your mask on. And
do we have a certain number that we have, like a max occupancy for Stumptown Park? So I guess people can get an idea. At least the Legion will have an idea of max 200 people, max 150, max 100. Just so they could have an idea of what they need to look for in their heads?
Yeah, so in this case, we're still under the max gathering limit. It is in an outdoor park, so it's not square footage, it's 50 people.
Should be 50 people, okay. Yeah, so that's a good point. Like if 70 people show up, who do you get rid of, and how do you do that without stepping on toes and hurting feelings and causing bigger issues than already exist?
Right. And another issue, it's not really fair to Mark and his people to make them police, in other words, they've got this thing to deal with. They're not really in position to throw people out of the park. I don't know if Mark's here or not. I don't know if he's joining us, but I'm just concerned that could be a problem. With only 50 people, that's not a hell of a lot.
No, it's not.
We can't even get,
that could be like 3 or 4 families.
Legitimate veterans into the park, let alone families or other people who are interested in being there, on top of the political folks in town.
Yeah. I would question how you keep it 50.
Well, I think the biggest part is, certainly this being viewed as an American Legion event. The town, like you said, we've canceled our events, knowing that there's no way we could do anything or be effective in delivering any outdoor events with the maximum gathering limits. And so we've canceled it. Knowing that Veterans Day is important to a lot of people, we did just say, look, American Legion, this is your event. Share what the max, make sure that, I guess everybody knows what the max, gathering limits are. But biggest thing is making sure that we saw what the plan was and how they plan to manage the size of people, size of the crowds, I guess, and of course the mask wearing. Now, if it came down to 75 people showing up in the park, I can't speak to what the response will be from the police department. But again, we did just want to see the plan on how the attempt, I'll say, would be to manage the size. But again, most importantly, the spacing and the mask wearing.
Can we live stream the event on the town's website as an option for some of the veterans who might not want to come out? Just a thought.
Yeah, maybe some additional Facebook pages as well. That'd be awesome. Yeah,
and so we were working on something like that before we canceled the Food Truck Fridays. Was there a way to, just because we paid for the bands, so we're like, let's stream it and at least let them perform, not encouraging the crowds, of course. But honestly, our internet, our bandwidth is not sufficient to do any streaming.
But what about the American Legion with them being right there? Would they have the capacity to do that?
Now, if someone doing it on their phone, maybe. We were talking more, with the cameras, I guess, whatever, appropriate cameras set up in the back and hiring a company to come and, say, manage that for us. But our internet bandwidth just wouldn't allow it. But that is something that we are working on. Actually got the green light 2 weeks ago to go ahead and switch, because right now it's Windstream going to Spectrum and sort of get those things in place.
Howie, this is Mark.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good. I'm sorry, I was traveling and I just now logged back in and I caught this part of the conversation. Do you mind if I make a comment here?
No, certainly. If you're there, that's great, because you're in as good a position to answer this as anybody.
Yeah, we've got a professional videographer and a still photographer that are going to be covering the entire event. And we are in the process of making it a live Facebook event. We're attempting to generate a hotspot right there and take care of that for us, because the average age of our membership is, up past 70 plus. And so it's to our advantage to do that as well. Now,
on top of that, we've got a 50-person capacity too, which may, I don't want you to be in a position where you've got to police an event you should be running otherwise and concentrating on the mechanics of the event, not the crowd.
Correct. Well, we're going to have an American flag, about a number of them out in the field, spaced 10 feet apart. And when they come into the park, they're going to be asked to sit down next to one of those flags. So it'll keep people apart in the park. And of course, we'll have masks and hand sanitizer and all of that at the entrance points as well.
Mark, I don't know whether, this is Sandy, I don't know whether you've anticipated numbers or not, but what if, and now it's because you're streaming, you may not have this problem, but what if 100 people show up when the capacity is a 50? What then?
Well, I'm going to reflect that question to the town, because the latest I heard was there was some kind of exception that, and Corey, don't quote me on this because I'm not absolutely certain, that because of the type of event it is, that it fits within certain other criteria. For instance, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, and Corey backed me up on this if I'm incorrect, but if they have a exercise class in the park, Corey, is it true that they can have something like 400 in the park doing exercise?
I haven't heard that one, but
yeah, it's 12 people per 1,000 square feet if it's an exercise class. So I think that if you calculate it out, it comes close to 400. So it's one of those things where why can you have 400 people exercising, but you can't have 400 people sitting there?
Wow. So, are we having 400 people exercising, Corey? I hope not in our parks.
No. What I'm trying to say is it's in the governor's 3.0 mandate that there are these exceptions. And so they're rather incongruous, actually. So I've been in discussions with Corey and with Hazen and with the attorney and with the mayor, and I think we're going to be able to work it out.
Because, Mark, I hate for us to inadvertently end up with a, quote, super spreader event when no one intended for that to happen.
No, and that's not our intent either. So we're going to do everything we can to mitigate that and take every precaution we possibly can. So, but on the other hand, we're not going to be in a situation where we're policing, and I don't want to get in confrontation with anyone that's, doesn't want to wear a mask. And if they don't want to wear a mask, by the way, we're going to have a special area set aside in the park away from the rest of the other crowd. That's going to be for people that are absolutely adamant that they're going to enter without a mask, and we're not going to get into some kind of altercation because of that. So,
Mark, can I make a partial suggestion here?
Sure.
Any possibility to you pre-ticketing the event? In other words, putting it out there, asking people to, do something, and that way you have a certain number and you have an excuse of, we've given out the tickets, boom, watch it live, or, if someone comes without one, at least you or the town has then got an excuse to say, sorry, guys.
Yeah, let me look into
thought.
Yeah, but let me look into that. I want to get, I believe we've got some kind of variance. Like I said, I'm not confident or assured that it's in place at the time, but I understand that there's discussions underway to make that happen. So anyway, I think it's a little premature right now until I find out a little bit more.
Right. We're not that far off from the event. And my big concern is I don't want to end up with the VA having to work as a police force. That's not fair. And that's, that's exactly a possibility. And I'm concerned about that.
Exactly. So let me get a more definitive ruling on this, Howie, and I'll make sure I send out an email to you and you can disseminate it to the group.
Right, and it may not be a problem. You may get, you may have a crowd that meets a reasonable demand with safety. I just don't know.
Right.
Mark, if you were anticipating, and this may not be fair because you probably don't know, if you were going to anticipate, particularly since you're live streaming it and you have a number of older veterans, what would you anticipate the crowd size being? If you were going to guess.
I mean, last year it was 50 to 100, somewhere in that area. Okay. I think this year I really do anticipate more because we've had such an incredible amount of advertising about it and coverage both in the paper and by the town and because of the new memorial that's getting a lot of buzz. So
we really anticipate more than 100 people in the park.
Well, I don't want to say I do, but I would love to be able to have hundreds of people in the park. But we want to be able to accommodate both the people that want to attend and those that want to maintain their safety. So it's a kind of a balancing act. But again, let me find out more from the town and see what kind of variances that we're being given. But whatever they are, whatever the variances are, everybody will be properly spaced and all of the precautions will be in place.
Yeah, I will just mention my family. We went apple picking about 2 or 3 weeks ago because it's outside, it's safe. And if I told you when we left at 10:30 in the morning, there was a 1.5 mile long line of traffic to get into the place, I would not be exaggerating. So I would possibly brace for the people think, oh great, outside opportunity, free in town, let's go. So I would just definitely plan for the possibility that a lot of people are itching for something to do and more than normal would show up.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's so much pent up desire to be outside and do something, especially something as significant as this. This is, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are looking forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else have any questions for Mark about the Veterans Day event? No, appreciate it, Mark. Thank you so much.
Okay, are you going to be needing me anymore, Howie, for the rest of the meeting?
No, unless you want to take place, but you've answered the questions on the veterans event. That's just a concern. It's not you guys. It's just you're doing an event, and it's the only one we've really had going. So no, we're good otherwise. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, just a very quick update though on the progress. If I could take another minute, Howie, is that okay?
Sure. No, go right ahead.
Okay, so we're all finished with the construction. Everything's done. The only thing that we need to do is on Saturday is the planting. So we have the appearance and tree committee members coming out, plus a bunch of other volunteers. And if anybody from your committee would like to come at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning to play in the dirt with everyone else, that would be great.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you all very much. And I'm sorry to jump in the middle of your meeting, but
No, thanks for the info. You've helped you've helped answer at least some of the questions. Thank you.
all right. Well, y'all have a good night.
Good night.
All right.
Okay. I guess old business. We've got new committee members. Most of us return the various your preference spreadsheet. We've got a top 4 that have been laid out. We've got one spot, right?
We have one spot.
So the question is, how do we want to do this? Obviously, we can invite them to the Zoom meeting, but it's probably going to have to be some way of having them come in and then go back out again. I don't know how we do that since we're in an open forum.
We can. I can't set it up where like Lori does it for the town board meetings, where. Well, I'll take that back. They are only visible to us. As we want them to, but I guess they would be able to listen.
I don't know.
Oh, no, they can have.
We don't have the right. We don't have the right to go into executive session like the town council does, right? And we discuss these applicants. I mean, the question is, talking to them is fine. The question is, how do we discuss them where they can't be sitting in on the discussion? That's the concern I've got.
Yeah. I mean, we can figure out ways. Certainly, different links to the conversations where we would say we would end our Zoom call and then resume another one with the different applicants is probably the easiest way, maybe. Or
we can just have them come in and talk to them briefly. My concern is, if we hold a meeting, do we have a right to keep anything out of the meeting? I'm not sure as a subcommittee of the town whether we have the same rights the town has when they discuss personnel matters, for example. That's shielded from. I just don't know the legal logistics of how we pull this off on a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's acceptable. I'll double check. There have not been any issues, in the past of anybody feeling their rights were being, I guess, withheld, not being able to sit in, on these conversations about the applicants. So I'll double check that to see if there's a concern. But just think about it. As I think about it, the person whoever sets up the meeting can't set up that waiting room where they have to, I get a message that they're waiting, and they would only be allowed in the waiting room when we were preparing, I guess, to talk to them.
And that'll be fine. Maybe we should consider the next meeting, if we're going to talk to these people, setting them up at the beginning of the meeting. Somebody at 6:40, 6:57, and then they're out, and we can deal with that and whatever else we've got to deal with.
Yeah. And
the second question I have for everybody is, we got one spot. We got a top 4. Do we want to bring in all 4? Do we want to bring in 2 or 3? How many do we really need? I see John's got 2 fingers up.
I do too.
So
four's too many. I can't see Scott or Debbie. They're hiding.
I'm good for 2. No, I'll just
okay, there's
hard
Debbie.
up there now.
All right. Is it consensus to bring in the top 2?
Yeah.
Which would be Tara Van Genderen and Deepa Johnston. And if one of them can't make it, then we authorize staff to move down the list.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay.
May I have a question?
Sure.
Okay, maybe I read it too quickly, and Corey knows that I wasn't reading the best instructions. Sorry about that. But the first two, I didn't quite see how involved they wanted to be in Parks and Rec. Like, maybe I'm not just being partial because her name is Deborah, but I like Deborah because she specifically said she wanted to be a part of Parks and Rec. Whereas the other two just kind of like alluded to wanting to be. Maybe it was just maybe I read it too quick. Is there like a reason for the two?
I thought they're.
Well, I think it's really everybody's individual, but why don't we do this? In other words, we've all done it. We talk to them next meeting, and then we can discuss the individual applicants among ourselves, because we're gonna make a recommendation to town council as to who we want them to appoint, and they're gonna actually have to do it, if that answers your concern. Now, if you're concerned about why are these guys why did you guys put these people on the top, right?
Yeah.
Right. And, and some of them, you look at their things, they've got stellar resumes. There are some concerns on somebody, personally, I had a concern. Somebody checked every box there. I had a concern about what was their interest in Parks and Rec as opposed. But these are all things that we can discuss when we're getting down to who to recommend, if that will make it easier on you.
Okay.
I think it's also a question for the applicant when they're here.
Sure.
You can sort of tell. I mean, the applicants don't know, Debbie, how many we're going to ask in. They don't know that they're two. And so, I mean, it would be a possibility that after we have the two and talk to them, if we feel like the level of commitment's not there, to go to the number three. You follow what I'm saying?
So I guess it wouldn't be worth meeting with all four of them and just to kind of interview them all? Or you
the only problem with that, I think, is you're setting, when you only have one spot and you meet with four, you're almost setting up a false. I mean, then you have three people feeling rejected. And I guess I worry about that a little bit.
It's also how much time do we want to spend with them? In other words, four is going to take a lot longer than two. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. And if you guys want to reconsider and listen to all four, I'm fine with it. That's why I just want to know how many for the one opening you guys wanted to hear from.
I'd rather hear from two. And then if we're not happy with those two, then go down below.
Well, Debbie, you've got a concern with that. What you prefer to hear from all four? Is that?
I do. I want to make sure the heart. Maybe it's just me. I just want to make sure the heart behind why they want to join is for the betterment of Parks and Rec versus just being on a committee.
We could also do this. We can bring in two, and if there are concerns about the commitment of both of those applicants, we do have the option of one more meeting of bringing in the other two, and then deciding if that helps. I'm just throwing that out as an option.
But like that, I just read about something, how they had a band. A band was coming together and they met. I don't know if you met, like, what is it called? I forgot their name. Anyway, they met through like a speed dating kind of band circle, and it's like, hey, I'm a guitarist and I'm looking for a band. And they went on to the next one. What if we had like a not like a speed dating, but almost like a speed dating, just to kind of get a taste or a feel for who they are. And then they're up for it. I don't know. Times have changed. Maybe that's up for discussion.
I'm afraid if we do speed dating, we'll get very little. We'll have very little information about anybody.
Well,
this is not brain surgery. We're not going to be spending hours with these people. Probably 10, 15 minutes is going to be more than enough, given what we already have. But, so Debbie, you want to make a motion to have all four come to the meeting? Do I understand that? Is that what you'd prefer?
Maybe, yeah.
Is there a second for Debbie's motion?
Nothing. Bzzzt.
Well, I'll ask. Does anybody want to go to bat for somebody that may not have made it in the top three?
I think Deborah, she specifically said Parks and Rec, and that kind of stuck out to me more, different than others. They had great resumes. I like the resumes, and it's like, unless you want to find a marketing person that would possibly be on the committee that would be more marketing focused, or is that the heart behind, or do you want someone that has the heart of like wanting to move Parks and Rec forward, or just kind of forward?
Because I'm looking here, I know Tara only checked off Parks and Rec. I'm trying to find Deepa.
I didn't see her again.
Melissa checked off Parks and Rec, cultural diversity. So, most of them were fairly limited. There were one or two I saw where they checked off a lot. And that was just, for me, that was a concern, but that's something we can talk about. But I'm just trying to figure logistically, there doesn't appear to be a lot of support right now to have all four at once, Deb, but what I'm trying to do is come up with an idea, maybe two. If we find somebody we like or we like them both, we're good. If not, we have the option of going back down the list.
Okay, as long as there's an option. It's not, yes.
Yeah, I
let's
mean,
have the
we may
options.
very well, people may get there and say between Tara and Deepa, we love one of them, and that's great. Or they may say, I'm not sure, and we can go from there. We're not obligated to make a decision next meeting, but at least we get the process going. If that's okay with you, I know Scott, I haven't heard from. John, what are you thinking about that?
Oh, you muted. I can't hear you.
John,
you're muted. Here.
Yeah, sorry, technical difficulties here. I'm more concerned about the latter of the topics that as you listed them earlier, Howie, in terms of just the effort and the time involved with bringing more people in. If there's somebody that Deb is passionate about, I'd be open to having like a third person. I'm just trying to think in terms of spending a whole lot of time interviewing multiple candidates for one role. It's not the last time that we're going to have availability. So it's not like it's, like now or never. It's now or a couple of months from now, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, Deb, you've got a concern. I mean, is it Melissa and Deborah, or is there one of those two that you're really interested in talking to on the list?
Like talking to, like interviewing, or just kind of?
Yeah, just meeting with and having a chance to chat with them.
Well, I guess my personality would like to meet them all. That's just me, because then kind of get an understanding of where their heart is at. That's just me. I can meet them for coffee. I know of a coffee shop. So it's one of those kind of things. But I also know personalities just want to just be in a position. And so I just want to, I like kind of like Parks and Rec. I want the right people.
Right. Why don't we do this why don't we start with the first two? And if we can't reach a consensus after talking to them, you have issues or enough members that think have issues, we can always go to the next two. And we can go out and keep going down the list technically if we had to do it. I don't think we'll have to, I think 4 will certainly be enough, but would that satisfy your concern?
Well, that will satisfy my concerns.
I'm trying to address what you want. I'm just trying to figure out how to get it all done.
Yeah. Yep.
And this scoring was strictly, adding up the numbers. And there were people that, there were some that I guess were ranked as somebody's top candidate, or it was a couple of them, but they didn't, not enough people had them low enough for them to be in the top 4, or low enough meaning, 1, 2, or 3. So what Debbie just sort of talked through was, I guess a little bit of, was what I was wanting to see if there was any more conversation needed. So, again, it sounds like Deborah is somebody that you would go to bat for. Is there any other candidate that, say didn't reach that top that when you read it, it was like, this is the one? Or, were they pretty much similar, or I don't know.
Yeah, I did like what she just had to say. Everybody had great resumes. Like how she's kind of
is there somebody in particular that
you
feel like getting shortchanged in the process? I think that's what Corey's trying to get at.
I think Deborah, I think she could go up a little bit. There's others on there that I don't have the bigger screen that I can pull up their resumes that I would not recommend. And I don't know if I could find that if you want me to take a minute to say.
No, I'm just trying to say there are 2 ways to do it. One is 2 and then 2, because Deborah would be in the second group. Deborah Bigley we're talking about, correct? Mm-hmm. So she'd be in that second group, and either we do a 2 and 2 if we get 2, and another 2 if we need it, or if you're really strong on Deborah, we can talk about bringing her in as a third person. And I'm just trying to figure out what it is you'd like to do.
Maybe I'd like to talk to Deborah, but that'd be a 3. That'd be 3 people. So is that too much?
Well, it's one more than 2. That's all I can tell. I mean, I'm not trying to be smart. It's not a major deal either way. I'm just trying to understand where you're at. John, you raising? I see.
You know what? If it's this big a deal to Deb, I would be good with.
No, it's not a big deal.
It's cool. It's okay that it's a big deal. Like if you're that passionate about it, I'd be open to talking to 3 people. Like it's.
All right, Scott. I haven't heard from Scott. You have anything on this? You can kind of quiet.
Corey, help me on this one. Was Deborah ranked third on the list by most of us?
Fourth. She was fourth in the total.
And I included her in there because the gap between Deborah and the person that was number 3 was so small. They were the scores were very close.
Yeah, and I'm good. I'm good with 3 or 4 too. It's not doesn't hurt my feelings one way or the other.
Why don't we propose this and see if we're okay? Why don't we invite Tara, Deepa, and Deborah? So it'd be 1, 2, and 4 to the next meeting. And if we have a problem, we can always then deal with Melissa or go down the list. If that's okay, guys, are you guys okay with that? Or
works for me.
Everybody's okay with that? Raise your hand, I guess. Except Scott, say aye since I can't see you.
Aye, Scott.
Thank you. All right, so why don't we do that? And Corey, why don't we try and set it up so that they'll be at the beginning of the meeting, maybe in 10-minute intervals enough for you guys? You want 15 minutes? How much time do you really think you need to chat with these folks?
Not long. Do you have a list of questions? Or you kind of ask them like generic list of like interview questions that you ask?
No, just, I mean, what I tell you to do is read the sheet and ask them what concerns you, what comes to your mind.
Oh, fine.
I'm not sure that there's a series for all of them. You're going to have different questions for different people depending on what they've already given us.
Okay. Cool.
And don't they usually just sort of introduce themselves and then we go from there? We give them an opportunity to speak and then we go from there and ask them any questions that we have.
That's pretty much what happens. So.
Yeah, I remember when I did my interview, we were just kind of, a couple of us just came in, we hung out, we stayed for the meeting, and then I think once the official business was done, we left and you guys talked about what you liked and didn't like about us, and then Dawn, my sister, voted against me.
That's only because she knows you well. But yeah, why don't we do that? We'll talk to them at the beginning, go through our business, and then the last thing will be, the end of our meeting will be deciding on who to recommend or what to do from there. We can cut them out and finish the meeting if that works for you guys.
That makes perfect sense to me. I don't know if everyone else.
That's time. It's the only thing I've made sense with all day today. Thank you.
Glad to help, my friend. Glad to help.
All right, so we're good there. So it's going to be Tara, Deepa, and Deborah are going to be invited to join in, go into the waiting room next meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, new business. Next is tourism money. I know Corey, Sandy, Susan. What happened? Is Susan still here or she's gone?
No, she's gone. I just noticed that.
Yeah, or Susan and Harvey all met and went through the applications. As I understand it, there were only 3. Now there are 4. I don't know who wants to spearhead this, whether Sandy or Corey, since you're the guys here who were at that meeting.
Yeah, I'll kick it off.
Corey.
So we did have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5. Well, we have 4, and then we had a 5th added last week. The chamber. Let me back up. So overview, we've got $77,000 as part of the tourism grant line item that can be used for the grant awards this year. I guess that number was reached at, I guess because of being 5% of the tourism fund, and this is based on last year's numbers. So we got the 77,000. Here, I'll just share my screen, and you can see what the applications look like.
Why don't you explain before we even start what went on with the Chamber of Commerce so that everybody else can get up to speed?
All right, so the chamber, again, they did not meet the submission deadline. So reached out, said, hey, just in case, knew they had some change in the guard. And we had the conversations, and apparently that's what it ended up being. Somehow the information between former and current, it was missed. The new person, I think her name is Jessica. She was great to talk to. Again, very apologetic, and one of those deals where I was convinced that if she were aware of the grant, she would have made it happen. And she turned around this grant to us by, I think it was last Wednesday. And that was after a conversation on like that Thursday prior. So it was a late submission. It was a late submission.
Was this after you guys had met or before you had had the subcommittee meeting? I'm just trying to get the time. Was it after the deadline, but before you met, or you had met and divvied up the 77,000 and then the chamber came in?
After we met.
So yeah.
Okay. When you met, you had no idea the chamber was out of the picture altogether.
Right.
Right. So we did have a very tight window. The deadline was like the 29th, and we met, I think, within 3 days after that. So, yeah, I think it would have been it would have been missed either way. Because I did not reach out until after we had met and divvied up just to confirm, did you not submit on purpose, or, was it something missed?
Have we gotten any feedback from town council about the chamber's bid, any of the commissioners, or not yet?
No, but I think there is, well, at least just talking to Hazen and Becky, when we talked about that, because we also talked, I don't want to bring in last year, but so we were talking about last year's grant also. So even with that, I mean, there is consensus that there is support by the town to support the chamber.
And just so you guys remember, last year we had a similar situation with rugby. They missed the deadline, came in, and the way that was dealt with is that they were given money, but they were put on the proviso that if they missed the deadline again, they would be, basically it was a one-shot deal. You miss the deadline again, you're locked out. Is that correct, Corey?
Yeah, that's what we did. Put it in the award letter. Conversation was we do the same thing with the chamber. And I mean, actually, that was shared in conversation during the other conversations last week. So I call it they are aware, but it still would be in writing if the committee agrees to move forward with this award.
Okay, so I mean, I guess probably the best thing to do is tell us who applied, give us an overview of what they wanted for and what you guys thought, and then the breakdown. Just lay it out for us, and we can go from there.
All right, so, all right, can you see my spreadsheet?
Yes.
Well, barely. You make it a little bit larger. Old eyes. There are those of us who have old eyes, but that's all right. I think I have a handout, so I should be okay, I guess.
All right, so we have the Charlotte City Ballet, who listed their holiday performances on the application. Request for $5,000. Mara request for $17,000. Theirs was a list of different things that Mara does throughout a season, totaling up to the $17,000 ask. Rugby was just for Ruggerfest, requesting $20,000. Matthews Chamber was a list of items. I'll share their ask this year is lower than what it's been in the past. And the Matthews Playhouse, again, with their season productions and different functions that they deliver throughout a year. And their request was $50,000. So, we met, looking at what the total in ask were being, call it $100,000 being requested, knowing we have 77 to divvy up. So can't keep them on the same screen.
I'm sorry.
All right, so you can see
on the bottom right, you should have there you go. They can zoom it in or zoom it out.
Can you guys see the entire left and right?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we
I can
can.
see A through H. Yep.
Yeah, we can
Right.
do it.
So the subcommittee's recommendation: Charlotte City Ballet 4,500, Mara 13,000, Rugby 14,500, Chamber at the 7,900, and then Matthews Playhouse at 37,000. And I'll share the 37,082 is because the Chamber's ask was this very specific amount. And just in conversation last year, or maybe it was a couple years ago, consensus was that we would not award any amount greater than what they requested. So to be consistent, I left that less than round number in, and that just forced us to make this a little weird number.
Okay, and it looks like all of these, obviously the chamber didn't get any scoring, but it looks the other four all scored very well on all of your criteria. I mean, they're all either perfect or within one.
They were good. The applicants were really, they've gotten to a point where they're meeting, I think, the whole spirit of it. We had a long discussion about how all of these met the spirit of tourism, and they really were good applications. They've gotten to a point where I think some of these that have been back several years really know how to write their application well.
Yeah, so there's a couple of them that have, like Ruggerfest is very straightforward and easy to view $20,000 and where it's going directly to this one event. The others, it is a combination of a lot of different activities that the dollars will be divvied up amongst. Again, if these amounts remain, I do believe I would be charged with, I call it itemizing the events and say what amount is going to what, just for, moving forward, we're not sure what is going to be delivered and what's not, just based on where we are in the world today. So I think that makes it a little easier if there is a back conversation next year, just understanding what we're doing now and the conversations that we're having, and it's just tough.
So I'm a super math nerd. So is there a particular reason, like Charlotte City Ballet got 90% of the request, and rugby got 73%? Mara got 82. Like, was there specific? The Playhouse got the remaining balance. Is there any specific reason why, not trying to say a negative connotation, but why the rugby got the least amount of their percentage from an ask standpoint?
Well, I think part of it is we looked at Charlotte City Ballet, and obviously that was by far the smallest until we got, well, it is by far the smallest still, even less than Chamber. And I should have reviewed all these. I apologize, but it seemed that was a fairly tight budget, and that they actually needed that to.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we looked at them out too. We just said, we're not talking about a huge amount of money compared to these others.
Can I ask a question? Does the Ruggerfest have a date, or that's not yet scheduled? I'm looking at all these things. In other words, Mara's got various tournaments that could go on through the entire year. Ruggerfest, same thing. The Chamber of Commerce, whatever. The Playhouse season, marketing sport. Charlotte City Ballet says holiday performances. Are we going to have? How we do holiday? That's my concern. We're giving them money on something that there's a very good possibility that is not going to go forward because of COVID restrictions. Because holiday performances is Christmas, right?
No,
that may be.
No, it was not. It was spring, wasn't it? Now, help me on this. I should have reviewed these. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just, because that's what it says, and that's the first thing that comes to my mind is how the heck are you going to do holiday performances?
I don't think they're doing it for Christmas.
Yeah, let me double check the application. That may have been a case if I didn't correct it from last performance. Let's see.
Because we did a lot of discussion about can they do it and will it work? And I'm trying to find my grant. Sorry. Fumbling a little bit.
And I can pull it up.
I don't think they're doing a Christmas performance, so I think that's sort of a.
And that's fine, because that, if their performances, we're going to get it on at some point, we're not quite sure when, that's fine. If they're saying we're going to be, it's only a Christmas performance, then I've got a concern with it.
Yeah, I don't think it was, Howie. Hang on a second. I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't have my notes.
No, I'm looking at it. It's the spring performance 2021.
Okay, I thought it was spring.
Okay.
So that really shouldn't say holiday, it's spring, unless spring is holiday.
Okay, that's great. Then that's just that takes care of that concern that I had there. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it should say spring performance.
And I guess on that same type of line of thinking, is there a waterfall impact? Like if something happens and this continues to happen, if the spring ballet comes up and they're not going to do that, if there's any money that's not already been spent, is there anything for, like, does the rest of the money go to the chamber? Does it go back to the Playhouse? Like, is there a backup plan, I guess, with that same spirit?
It could be an ask of the board. Another group could request additional dollars, but for example, Kiwanis gave back their money from last year because the race didn't take place, but it just simply went back into the general fund, so it was not reallocated to any of the groups.
Yeah, I think our discussion was that some of these might not go on, and then it would just go back to just like Kiwanis did.
Yeah.
But I guess I think that point is well taken. If the money does go back and there's a time element, see, the problem is if the money goes back, if it's so late that you can't get a notice out to the others, then I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could do like a predetermined waterfall? If I guess since rugby's taking the biggest hit, they would get the first X% until it gets it scores up with the Playhouse, and then kind of distribute evenly from there. Or I think I'm just
do something like that.
That would be great. That would be great in normal circumstances. We're not altogether sure that if Charlotte City Ballet doesn't have their performance, that the Playhouse can do part of what they're going to do, or that Ruggerfest is going to do what, and that's a concern because there's too much uncertainty.
Correct.
Do we want to consider or suggest to the town board that if these folks can't do their event, if they can show us an alternative way they will spend this money that will somehow benefit the tourism fund, whether, we can consider allowing them it be altered with approval of whether town board or going back. I'm just trying to think it out.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I mean, Scott's idea would be great if we knew, that the events are all going to go forward, but there's a possibility too that none of this is going to happen, or that only part of it is going to. I know. And once again, it's not going to be the fault of any of these 5 organizations. It's just that they can't do what they're going to do because they're being restricted.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we can certainly write into it. But yeah, we'll be waiting until the end of the year, I guess, for them to share it. Backing up, so the money part, reallocating the money, I think the point someone made about the timing of it would be tough. If we're in May and June, ending our fiscal year, it'd be tough to reallocate it in that same fiscal year.
We're probably going to take a hit on the money available next year, I'm assuming, and maybe roll that money over into next year's fund to keep it, try and keep it close to what we've been doing.
One of the discussions we had, Howie, was that we probably need to make sure these folks know that we're probably going to get a hit next year. And in all honesty, we probably will not have these funds next year, or not none, but we probably will not have as much as we have this year.
I mean, it's fair to presume that this amount would be lowered next year.
Yeah. And I think, we've been lucky because every year we've been able to increase most of the organizations that have come back with us. I think if money is unspent and comes back to tourism, here's a question. Can we just keep that for next year and add it to the other tourism money? What will the town allow us to do? That's a question for Corey.
Moving money from year to year is tough.
Yeah, I thought probably not.
It's going to be on timing and how it's set up. So for example, I have been able to use some dollars from last year this year for X number of projects, but it is a process with finance and the ledgers to make sure they have all their ducks in a row to make sure it's reflected correctly. I can ask that question to finance, but of course the easy thing is don't do it and just send the money back and we just go year to year. I'm not sure if this line item does take a hit or is greatly reduced, I'm not sure how to make it whole or to bring it back, even with unspent dollars.
We're looking at 9 months of pretty much no hotel motel
I
tax
know,
for
it's gotta be
starters.
reduced. It'll be reduced next year. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. One, I guess that's something that we probably have to address with the town in terms of how to handle it. You know, also the other issue, obviously, of what do we do? What do we do if the events are canceled due to COVID?
Right.
Yeah.
But we need guidance from that from town. So I think, Corey, when we present it to town council, it's probably an issue we want to clue them in on in advance.
Yeah, I think we'll, don't recall what we put on the schedule. I wanted to bring this up to the town board, but you're right. I think it would be a good idea to have X number of bullets, just sort of explaining what we just talked through. If they aren't able to deliver the events, expectation of the money, being returned. But also, I like the idea of asking them to provide at least some narrative of whatever alternate program or event that they say did or could do to use those dollars in a different way than what was on the application.
Anybody else have any thoughts on without getting into the numbers and the allocation, on the general deal of allocating money, and what do we do with all these eventualities that we've been talking about? No, I can only see Corey, so I can't see anybody else on my screen right now. So I don't know if you're gesturing or what. Nobody else has anything they want to add on that?
Scott's good. No problem here.
Okay. So why don't we talk then about the allocation to 77,000? Anybody want to start weighing in on that? Everybody satisfied with how it's broken down, or somebody want to see some changes here?
So I'm satisfied with how it's broken down. Could you maybe ask your last question again, Howie?
We've been talking about, this is not a normal year. And obviously last year's money is going to have to be addressed by town council, what to do with those organizations that couldn't spend all the money on what it was bargained for, and they'll do that. But we were talking about now, how do we deal with the situation where we give money to, let's say, let's use Ruggerfest just because and Ruggerfest cannot go off during the next year. How do we deal with that? One thing is town council, what's your view on it? But I don't know if you guys, Scott talked about, Waterfall moving the money, trying to move the money down, or up the list to the next person or whatever. And I just want to make sure there's some consensus with everyone on that.
And that kind of makes it like if Ruggerfest, I have no clue what Ruggerfest is, but if it's normally scheduled for February.
It's a rugby festival. Once again, it may be scheduled for February. It may go off in May. We don't know.
Yeah, they were real fluid in terms of their scheduling.
Okay, cool. And I guess the ballet, they got spring, so like April. So at the end of April, if they don't do it, that's, if there's some hard and fast date that they have to use it by, if it's far enough, it's not as close to the end of the fiscal year that we can just rapidly reallocate it that way. Again, the tourism funds can actually be utilized for tourism purposes. That was just my thought.
Another fly in the ointment, guys, is let's take a Matthews Big Stage production of Ruggerfest. I assume that our part of what we're doing is based on how many bodies are in the seats, but Ruggerfest is in the stadium there is what, 3,000?
Well, they use all the other fields also, the championship.
Right. But in other words, if there are restrictions on how many people can attend, then the figures that everything was based on are going to be way off.
Yeah, I think right now it's 7% of capacity is where we're at on this special spate with professional sports teams. Is that going to have the same impact, or is that going to be considered a large gathering and be capped at 50? Like, what are the current implications if we don't move out of stage 3?
If we did not change the championship field, the stadium did not meet that threshold of 10,000 seats. So I think they were still at 30% or 100, whichever was fewer. So even say in the championship field, they'd be max at 100, but then each of the other fields, whatever, 30%, and there's no seating, it's just space. So yeah, I don't have a calculation on it, but it's a lot fewer than the 30%. Oh no, of the 7%.
I think we have to raise this with town council and get some guidance on how do we deal with this. One, if the events don't go forward. Two, if they go forward with a very reduced capacity because of COVID, what are your thoughts on how to deal, whether we adjust things or we just, let it be?
Yeah,
with some ability for them to show how otherwise ways they spent the balance of the money that helped tourism or put Matthew's name at least out there.
Yeah, I think this year, looking back at last year's, given us a lot of experience, I think hopefully very soon we should have some formula or some methodology to allow organizations to account for the programs that they did and did not deliver and somehow tie it to some dollar amount that correlates with what they were and what they weren't able to do, and go from there. It would be tough to, dig around with especially with Mara and, with Ruggerfest, them using that large facility, like putting percents on it, be a challenge, I believe. But I think, going through this now will give us some experience in how to, or what to put in place for these groups to hopefully make it easy if nothing happens, or if the events aren't able to be delivered.
I think this is all stuff we're going to have to raise up to town council, to tell them these are issues that are coming up. If you want to deal with them now, do you want to deal with them down the road? What guidance can you give us?
Yeah.
Well, may I offer some? Is it possible, for example, like if they don't have the spring performance, if they allocate those funds? I'm looking at the ballet in respect to how they could pivot to kind of fit the state of where things are right now. It's like, all right, well, you can't have a visual, in-person performance, but what can you do with the funds to kind of meet the needs of still delivering this performance, but in a way that's fitting this landscape right now?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think we can certainly put, I guess make them aware of it, at the award time. Say, hey, be prepared to present some information about what you were able to do. I think it would be retroactive, I would say. So I don't think they would come to us with an idea and say, get permission to do something different to use those dollars. In my opinion, I prefer it be this end of year, hey, this is my post-event report in the narrative. We weren't able to do this. We weren't able to do A, but we did B and C, and, let that sort of play it out.
Yeah, and I think we should also preface that conversation with this is not meant to be any type of penal type action. It's just an accountability standpoint of what happened.
Right.
So that when people ask us where our money went, we can tell them with confidence that, the ballet didn't happen the way it was supposed to, but X, Y, Z, and they go, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, we're not trying to
that's
get
the same
it
issue. That's the same issue we're going to have with folks from last year that weren't able to do some or all of what they were granted. In other words, the town's got to deal with that. Once they decide how to deal with 2019, 2020, the same rules would apply in 2021.
Yeah, that would give us a precedent to work on. Yeah, that makes sense. Do we know when they're going to make a decision on that, or at least meet on it to give us to find a direction so we can kind of prepare this group for if it doesn't go off as directed, this is what you need to do? Do we have an ETA on that from the town?
Honestly, we're still working through it. It'd be some of the groups are still pulling together some information for us. I would love for it to be in place before we make these awards.
Yeah, so that makes it so much easier. We could be a precursor to.
I'll get an update. And honestly, right now it's not being asked of the board. It's Hazen and Becky. And so it could be a quicker response if it's at the administrative level saying, hey, this is what we plan to have in place. Now, granted, we'll update the board on it. Honestly, rather than 2 meetings of potentially 2 meetings, I think if it's handled by Hazen and Becky, we can have a much quicker answer.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you.
What they decide will apply retroactively and for the going forward with these.
Yeah.
And also with these, we also have the second issue of not only if it doesn't happen, what do we do if it's at a very reduced capacity? Does that affect it at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if maybe, whether it's something we want to consider holding this presentation to town council off for a couple of weeks to let Hazen and Becky work through that so that then we can go in with that already resolved and that's not going to be hanging over the whole picture. Just a thought.
Yeah. Actually, it's on the application, the schedule. Let's see.
Yeah, we're talking about 5 organizations. All we have to do is send them an email saying, guys, due to COVID and everything else, this is being put off a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it looks like October 26th was promised.
Okay.
So, I'll continue to update this board, this committee. I'm not sure if we be prepared by the 26th, but we'll try. And if we aren't prepared, you're right, we can push this award presentation back.
Right. It's really the ball, unfortunately, you're telling me sounds like it's in Hazen's court right now in terms of whether he's going to deal with it, it goes to town council, or how, once we have those rules in place, we're good to go.
Yeah.
All right, guys, anything else on all the problems we talked about as opposed to the actual dollar figures that are put out there? No? All right, anybody want to now comment on the allocation of the $77,000, any in total or to any one organization or more?
It's John. In total, it makes sense for us to try to spend what's available. The allocations for the organizations, this passes my sniff test. This makes sense in terms of the approach and the final numbers. I've sat on that subcommittee before. I know it's not easy. I know there's subjectivity to it. This output passes the sniff test.
Yeah, this is Scott. That seems extremely unreasonable. All the numbers, the way they're set up, once you gave that explanation, definitely makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, what are you, since you didn't sit on the subcommittee, I'm going to go through you guys. And Sandy's already had her say, and Susan, if she comes back, has had her opportunity too. Debbie, you still with us?
I'm here.
Any thoughts on this whole mess?
No, it looks beautiful. I like the Excel spreadsheet. But let me ask you, how come, I know you'd mentioned, Corey, that they only asked for 37. So the subcommittee recommend, I'm looking at Matthew's Playhouse. They requested 50, only got 37. You said that was because that's specifically what they requested. What is that? How does that work out?
No, that was the chamber he was talking about, requested 7918 exactly. What happened is the 7918 was carved, it appears was carved out of whatever was originally given to Matthew's Playhouse, is my guess. That's how the numbers seem to stack up.
Yeah, so,
A lot of it was.
Debbie,
one of the things we did was look at Matthew's Playhouse over the last several years of and we tried to go back historically, not just 1 year, but several years. And of course, they've had some pretty significant, we believe that they should give. Obviously, they get the bulk of our money, and we believe that they should. But if you looked over the last several years, they've had some pretty significant increases over the last 3 or 4 years. We did look at that, I remember.
Yeah, I know. I know that they're hurting right now. Like, is it possible to give them the whole 50?
If we had it, we probably could.
Right. You do that, you got to carve it out of somebody else. So you're taking the hurt from one organization and putting it on another.
I know.
And yeah, so it was that $82 left.
I get what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. And so we just added the $82 in.
Oh, I got it. Cool. Looks great. I'm glad they're getting a significant amount.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the allocation as is, obviously pending whatever the town may decide to do with all the other issues we raised?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of allocating the $77,000 as laid out in the 2020 2021 tourism grant evaluation spreadsheet, say aye.
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 Opposed? Anybody? All right, we're good to go. So I guess the issue is going to be whether or not we go forward with this on the 26th of town council, or it gets laid off while they figure out the COVID related ramifications.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you all for doing this. I know it's not easy.
Right.
No,
Yes.
but it's kind of fun. because
Sandy, thank you.
They're really good applications. They're good. They were good applications. I mean, we agreed that all of them were really, and they meet the spirit of tourism too.
Hope they are all able to deliver.
That's right. If they're able to deliver, that's
So
the
Corey,
big deal.
if you would just keep us updated as to when it's ready to go to town council and what Hazen and Becky decide to do, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
All
I'll keep
right.
you posted. And I'll I'll say we can do things over email a little easier than elected officials can. If we do have a plan in place, I can share it with you because we would not meet until it'll be after the 26th. So if we have a plan, I'll share it with you. And if this committee agrees, give me a email thumbs up, and we could proceed potentially on the 26th. But I'll keep you updated.
Corey, if you need any assistance in hitting in with Hazen, let me know. I'll be happy to get involved if you think it's necessary. If not, I will not be insulted at all. Trust me.
Okay.
But all right, that takes care of that. Is there any other new business, guys? Anybody else have anything? If not, we've been at this for a while tonight, guys. So thank you all very much.
Well, it's great fun, man. Great, very productive meeting. Thank you. Thank you for.
Let's adjourn this thing, and anything comes up, we'll let you all know by email as to what's going down, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
That's good.
All right. Everybody else, stay safe and healthy and have fun.
Bye, guys.
Have a nice day.